This is a free call, but donations are being accepted to Claire's Place Foundation's COVID-19 Emergency Fund to support kids with cystic fibrosis, who are some of the most impacted right now. And I will put the link in the chat box a few times over the course of the call. So if you want to donate, you can grab that. And if you have any questions throughout the call, you can chat with me privately. I also just want to make a brief little announcement that's very exciting, which is that next week, on next week's call, we're going to have best-selling author and inspirational speaker Danielle Laporte with us. And so she's going to be with John answering questions, and so very exciting. So that's all the news and the announcements. If you need anything, just private message with me, and I will turn it over to John.
Thank you, Nicolette. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. First of all, I just want to say thank you for all of you who have supported Claire's Place. It's my daughter's foundation, is my daughter's foundation, and very near and dear to my heart. So thank you for the donations that you've given. All right, let's just do a real quick breath exercise. And this is one that I like people to do multiple times a day. So let's just say it's only a fucking minute. So we can breathe for a minute, multiple times a day. So you want to make sure that there's some kind, whatever you're doing, you're feeling the ground underneath you. So it could be through the soles of your feet. It could be through your sits bones if you're sitting cross-legged. It could be through both. Like I like creating a bit of a triangle between the soles of my feet and my sacrum so that there's like a plug. And then I imagine that the bottom of my heart, from the root of my heart, because the heart has a root at the bottom. And if you notice, it's pointing straight down to your genitals. So, God knew what she was doing when, she set this up. So the root of your heart is pointing straight down through your genitals and into the earth. So I want to just take a moment to, press down that root of your heart and feel that contact, that line, that tube of energy moving down from the base of your heart into your groin. And then just imagine now you could place both that, your heart and your groin, down into the earth. And then feeling that deep-rooted connection, like a tree rooting down, roots spreading out. I want you to lift the top of your heart up to the sky. So imagine not your chin, but literally the top of your heart. So you might use the ribs to lift your heart a little higher, the waist to lift your heart a little higher. But the shoulders come down and back, and the chin tucks. It's the heart that lifts. So I want you to feel simultaneously this rooted heart, the rooted base of your heart, and the lifted top of your heart. So it's like sky energy. So literally you're making your body, like Qigong discusses a lot, you're making a body a bridge between heaven and earth. So you can feel the heavens, you can feel the sky, you can feel the clouds, you can feel the sun through the top of your heart, wide, expansive, clean. And you can feel the ground, you can feel the richness of the earth, the mud, the rock, the mineral through the root. And then all together now, we're going to take a nice deep inhale in. And then on the exhale, just hold it for a second. And then on the exhale, I want you to root even deeper and make a sound like a sigh. And go ahead and exhale now. And then again, a nice deep inhale into the base of your body. Filling up your belly, filling up your abdomen, feeling your heart, lifting your heart to where you want to go in life, where you want to be in the world. Manifesting. Feel the manifestation through the top of your heart, and then exhale again and root down even further. And then one last one, inhaling deeply. And then with a sigh as loud as you dare, as my friend Rich Litvin says, exhale out and root even further. And then keeping your eyes closed just for a couple more breaths now. Activate your core, both the core through your belly and through your solar plexus, but the core of your heart, the part of you that is fierce, the part of you that is determined, the part of you that is strong, as if you could spring into action. Just feel that core nice and active. And then connect one last time to that channel that moves between your heart and your groin. And then relax everything without losing your structure. So let everything relax, your jaw, your shoulders, let everything relax, but don't lose the structure that you created. And then you can go ahead and open your eyes and join the call. Okay. All righty. How can we help today?
So we're going to go to, I'm probably going to butcher this. We're going to go to Girasol. Girasol? Okay, there you are.
Thank you. Hi, John.
How do we say your name?
It's my nom de zoom, but it's Girasol. So
Got it. And great, nice to see you.
Thank you. So my question is, there was an email that came out, it was about a week ago, and it was an email promotional for the Embodied Men's Program. Mm-hmm. And it said, embody the depth that the feminine and the world wants to follow. Mm-hmm. And I was reading that and I was like, there are aspects that I kind of want the world to follow me sometimes. So like this whole pandemic has had me realize that I want sort of like my voice out there in the world differently in terms of what I do, which is politics and policy. Mm-hmm. And I'm just wondering, like, for me, does the masculine sort of present itself differently in a female essence body than a male body? Because like, I don't want to be like the men that are out there, but I do think that like I bring gifts in terms of presence and consciousness and what's needed and depth. So on the one hand, it's like, I'm feeling the calling for that in terms of what I do in the world. And then I also want a relationship. So like, I feel torn between like masculine practices for my purpose, but mm-hmm. feminine practices because I do want to invite in legendary love. And so I feel torn, and I feel torn particularly being in a female body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thanks for bringing that question. The common misconception is that these things are gender connected. And other than, sort of the historical heteronormative tendencies, they really aren't. I mean, I have a very strong feminine capacity. Sounds like you have a very strong masculine capacity, and it's totally healthy. In fact, part of our health as a human being is to be able to have both a fully expressed feminine capacity. The feminine capacity in all of us is the capacity to transmit love through our bodies at any moment, through your eyes, through your fingers, through your heart, through your breath, through your, everything, right? The masculine gift, I mean, there's many, but the masculine gift in all of us is the capacity to transmit depth and consciousness. Now, doesn't matter how you identify gender-wise, right? This is just the yin and the yang, the consciousness and love, the emptiness and fullness. I mean, the universe is a polarity universe, and we in our human bodies mirror that. So yeah, you want to develop both, in my opinion, right? And you want to become super fluid at being able to, right? If you're in politics, right? Or if you're, and your capacity, our masculine capacity is the capacity for clarity, direction, right? So when I'm speaking and I say, I'd like you to send an email to and say this. That's a masculine directional language. I'm pushing the masculine through. When I say, I'm feeling this or this, and I'm in an expressive language, that's a feminine language, right? Part of what we want to do is is get very clear. First of all, we want to develop the capacities to bring depth. A good way to put this is the feminine wants to keep the party going, right? The feminine wants to keep the party going. More love, more sex, more food, more and all of us, more chocolate, more this, more puppies, more children, more pictures, more plants, more life, right? The masculine in all of us wants to deepen the party, So you might say, let's say you and I were planning a party together. You might say, okay, your feminine would be like, okay, we want this, we want music, and we want, costumes, and we want, and we're going to party all night. And then I would come in and say, yeah, we're going to party all night. Like this is the last night on earth.
Okay.
Do you feel how both are working together now? Like you've got, we're partying, but the masculine in me is saying, okay, but this is the last night. So we're going to just give love like it's the last night on earth.
Okay.
So you feel that you have both, right? You have both, and honoring and amplifying both is part of what makes us a fully expressed, healthy human. So, what we want to do is we want to be able to pick where in our body minds, because we all have different histories and different limitations and different karmas and different parents and different epigenetics, we kink. So some men or women will have trouble giving directional language, commanding, right? Or owning that from a fierce place. Well, that's the place their masculine is a little kinked. Some women, men too, will have trouble expressing the truth of their heart. That's the place that they're kinked. So we work on the places where there's kinks so that we can become really full in our expression of all of it. Then, and I'm giving you kind of the stage, and then in what David would call, what my teacher would call the third stage, I would call it sacred expression. We use the divine through us to determine what needs to happen when. When is my masculine needed? Like normally at work for you, it sounds like your masculine's needed. Also your feminine too. So what's needed and when, right? Now you may be at work, but there's some deeply intuitive, ultimately, the best practice is masculine and feminine working together in complete harmony, fully expressed moment to moment. That's all we're going for. So I wanted to just stop there and see if that lands or helps with your question, or if there's anything follow-up that you have.
No, that helps a lot. Thank you. Because it's unusual because I feel like I'm on a really great trajectory at work. And part of that has been because I've been a little bit deeper in my feminine, even though it's public policy. So it's strange, but I feel that like more of my feminine has helped me in my work environment, but I am still struggling in this sort of like personal environment. And maybe it's because my masculine is so developed. So, it feels a little imbalanced right now. And maybe that's okay.
It's very common for powerful, successful women who've learned to develop their masculine. And it's great. Like, fuck, don't we need more feminine in our politics right now? Don't we need more like feeling and intuition? I'm going to argue we do without getting into politics here, but I think we just need more capacity to feel, right? And so that's awesome. It's awesome. Hopefully y'all will be, in 50 years, women will be running the planet. 50, it can't happen soon enough for me, but in 50 years, the feminine will be running the planet. Thank the fucking Lord, because the men have fucked it up. But with your personal life, yes, if you have a very well-developed masculine and you come home to a relationship and that kink gets kind of triggered in you, where you feel afraid or you close, or there's some habitual programming from your childhood normally that gets triggered. Oftentimes women will use the masculine they've developed to deal with that, either fear or heartache or yearning, right? So they'll you know, join a workshop, or they'll join a program, or and that's good. That's good. I mean, you know, that's great. They'll read books. They'll try to tell their partners what to do. They'll coach their partners to loving them better, so that their and which won't work if your partner's masculine or your partner's in their masculine, right? Because they're going to be like, fuck you, I know what I'm doing. I'm going here if they're in their masculine. So what if you want to evoke, and it's such a great question because I think it covers so much of what I teach, at least. If you want to evoke the masculine in a moment from your partner, then you have to relax your masculine. Meaning no direction, all feeling.
I'm so good at giving direction.
I know, you probably crush it. Well, which is fine now, when your partner is in his feminine, which lots of men have a very well-developed feminine, I do, right? When your partner is in his feminine, that's fucking awesome. He'll be like, baby, I don't know what to do. I'm fucking lost today. Like I'm groundless. Or he's ejaculated a lot. Men kind of get very groundless after they ejaculate a lot. So you taking charge in that moment is great because it's what the moment calls for. The moment calls for your leadership, which is probably better than his at that moment. But in the moment where you're trying to use your masculine to solve the problem of a broken heart, it often does not. And so that's the training of, and this is a yogic training. I mean, this is why I like longer term programs. You know what I mean? I like 96-month, 9-month programs because it takes time to learn how to practice unwinding the impulse. It's probably like a knee-jerk impulse in you, yeah? Like, okay, all right. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm going to suggest for you, my love, is that you make a meditative practice out of being with the feeling. And you don't move, are you in a relationship now?
No.
No, okay. So this can happen alone too. You make the meditative practice about being with your own feeling and not trying to solve it at all. Feel it, feel it, feel it, and wait for an inspiration to come through the feeling. So we've been talking about this a lot on these calls, and I think it's worth repeating, right? So you're feeling your yearning to be met, maybe, right? Or to be seen, or to be held. And you stay with that. You stay with that. You stay with that. Maybe you do some practice to move it through your body and honor it. That's all you're doing in practice. You're honoring it. You could do it in the breath practice I just gave you 2 or 3 times a day. Just like feel that part of your heart that's yearning to be met. And then sigh from that part of your heart. That's a way of honoring your own heart. So, you know, your original question was, hey, how do I lead? I think you can lead from both. You can lead from depth and you can lead from heart, let's call it, from love, right? And we want to develop the capacity to do both in both our relationships, all of our relationships, not just romantic, and in the world. And the capacity to do that, like as a bright shining sun, requires a yoga because we have these kinks. Does that make sense? Like you are love already, and you are depth already. So is everybody on this call. Like you're already consciousness and love, and all I need to do is tell you that, and you'll remember. Oh yeah, I'm love. Okay? But your capacity to express those things through your body, moment to moment, takes a yoga, takes practice, takes skill. Again, which is why I do programs, because it takes a while to unwind these fucking things, man. They're habits for a reason. So I wanted to give broad strokes here. Is that helpful in terms of?
No, yes, very.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so glad for your question. Thanks for starting us off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next we have Robert. Robert, yep, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, John.
Hey, Robert.
Um, I think this question might be related or be in the same arena as that first question, but I've been noticing this pattern in my life where my work balance is getting way out of whack, and I find myself just feeling this desire or this driving need to be more and more productive, or in my work, my job. I have some entrepreneurial initiatives I'm getting off the ground, some creative projects. It's just like my to-do list is getting longer and longer and longer. And at the end of the day, I don't want to relinquish the day or admit that it's over.
Yeah.
And I find I'm driving myself into the ground. And I sat in on the session you did, the Tuesday session you did 2 weeks ago. You mentioned something about toxic masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always thought of toxic masculinity as like catcalling women at a bar or getting into fights or whatever. And I'm like, I don't do that. But then you described toxic masculinity as like this, something like I just described. And I thought, oh man, I wonder if that's something I have to address. So I was wondering if you could just unpack that concept a little bit and strategies for dealing with it.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, again, that's a great question. And I think a lot of men and women deal with that. So the masculine, which seems like you're more of a masculine essence guy. The masculine in all of us, when confronted with stress, will often look to produce, because we'll either look to produce or we'll look to completely release and be free of demand. So we're either looking for the freedom, the self-esteem that comes from production, right? Or the freedom that comes from zoning out, kind of faux nothingness. And that's often how the masculine will deal with stress. I think at the heart of your question is a practice that I give men in the men's group. And I think it's important, and I do myself. And that is, you want to end your day having, with the way that I was taught this is, I want to end my day with no thought. I want to end my day so that when I put my head on the pillow, I have no thought, because I've completed the things that are important for me to complete. Now, that is normally not the to-do list. Normally, it's 2 or 3 things that absolutely have to get done today. Maybe on a big day, there's 4 or 5. There's conversations to drive initiatives forward. There's maybe conversations or things I need to do to get back in integrity in some area. There's movement. For me, it's about writing. I'm writing a lot these days. So oftentimes if I don't write, I can't put my head down on the pillow and just, so I would start with that practice, right? And discern what is legitimately what has to happen today, so that when you put your head down on the pillow, you can die complete, so to speak. Do you get a sense of what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think if I examine my own to-do list, some of those items on the list I have a lot more resistance to than others. And for me, I feel like the ones that I have resistance to, those are the ones I got to do.
Might be. Yeah. Oftentimes, look, we all have resistance, and our resistance is our feminine, actually. Like, I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to spend an hour writing copy for my fucking website. Right? Because it doesn't feel good. It might not feel like what I want to do. That's my feminine. And so part of what this is why I'm giving you a structure, like pick the 2 or 3 things, and in the morning, feel into it. Okay, what do I have to do today so that when I put my head down on the pillow, there's just nothing. There's emptiness. And then get clear in your morning practice or your morning meditation about what those things are, and then focus on those. Now, if you get on a roll and some things start happening on top of that, great. But at the very least, you're doing the things that are most important. And actually it causes more stress, like you're talking about, for our masculines when we're leaving the things that we know have to get done undone because we're out of integrity with our own heart. That makes sense? Like, you know that to drive this thing that's super, that is like, so the expression of your consciousness, like probably some of your initiatives are the deepest expression of your consciousness. Yes. You know what I mean by that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So these initiatives are whether you're writing a book or making a film or starting a business or whatever you're doing, making masks, you know, whatever you're doing, it's the deepest expression of your consciousness. So when you don't move it forward in the way, it's almost like you're betraying your depth. You're betraying the truth of who you are. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Which is going to stress you out. You're going to feel like shit. You should feel like shit, actually. You know, when you know your purpose or you're clear on your purpose and you're not moving forward to take care of it, there is a lack of integrity and it's painful. Anybody else relate to this? I'm sure he's not the only one. I mean, we all have this, right? So it's painful. So part of getting us back into integrity, especially in a time of overwhelm like this, is to get really clear on the less that needs to happen really well. Right? And the part of you that needs to do more and keeps adding to that to-do list, and okay, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do it fast, right? So I would expand the time frame for your to-do list, and I would focus on the 1 or 2 or 3 things that feel like the deepest expression of your consciousness. What has to happen so that you're in absolute integrity with your own heart? And if I was gonna say that to you today, I don't know where you're calling from, but could you tell me, like, there's the 1 or 2 or 3 things that feel important to do today? You don't have to tell me. I'm just curious if you're clear.
Yeah. For me, it's a writing project where I feel like massive, I just procrastinate or like I find all these little things to do instead of doing that. But then once I've sat down and I tell myself an hour a day.
Yeah.
And when I get that hour in, it's like, okay, whatever happens for the rest of the day, I can deal with. But
awesome. Yeah, I'm in a similar boat, man. I write every morning. I actually created a structure for my life. This is just what I did. You can take what you like and leave the rest. But I created a structure for my life. Normally, this is my writing hour. I'm just kind of inserting this call. But normally I'm up at 5:30. I do some practice. I meditate. I get in my body. And then I write for an hour. And then almost everything I do afterwards is imbued with the integrity that I've shown myself because I created a structure for it and I honored that structure. Now, do I honor it every single day? No. But am I 80% of the time, am I there? And the more developed my masculine is, the more adherent to that structure I am. So the more I'm in my masculine, the less I give a fuck about anything else happening in the world. Like, I'm just focused there. Now, most guys I know have enough feminine in them that they get swayed by the flow of life and everything going on, and their friends need help, and so an hour a day feels good to me, man. Like, just give yourself an hour, and I'd give it early. That would be my other, like, make it early in the morning so that everything that happens afterwards will have the residue of your creativity and integrity. And then ask yourself that question every morning. Okay, what are the 2 or 3 things to do? What do I have to do today so that when I put my head down on the pillow, I can die complete? And then we extrapolate that out into our life. What do I have to do this year? So at the end of this year, if I died at the end of this year, I would die complete. What do I have to do 5 years, 10 years? If I'm dying, if I'm on my deathbed? But it really, most guys will do the big stuff, but the day to day, like, what do I have to do to die complete? Our toxic masculine will pile on more, oftentimes because we don't want to feel. We don't want to feel the lack of integrity of not truly living our purpose. We don't want to feel the pain and suffering that's going on around us at this time. We don't want to feel the loneliness. We don't want to feel, so we'll just pile on. Women will do this in their masculine too. So that give you enough to start with, my friend?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Good, man. Thanks for the question. That's great. These questions are great. You guys are awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, we have Layla. Layla, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi,
Hey, Layla.
thank you. I did one of your workshops in New York a while back, and it was really life-changing for me, so I appreciate that. So
Hopefully we'll do workshops again someday.
Yeah,
Right.
totally.
Yeah.
So I'm like kind of in this place where I'm a little conflicted. I've never been in relationships often. Like I've had 2 short relationships probably in my whole life. And that doesn't come from a place of like regret. Like I think I'm just not one to go into something casually, and I'm careful about it in a way. But I really want to be in a relationship. Like I yearn for it. And I feel like there's this complexity because when, oh my God, I'm so nervous. When I feel someone pursuing me, I'll often I'll feel it at the beginning and I'm like, oh, this feels good. And then I like stop letting it happen. Like I'll stop responding, or I'll take forever to respond, whatever it is. I'll just like, it's not right. It doesn't feel right. And I'm trying to figure out if that's my intuition guiding me, or if that's me like self-sabotaging lots of potential relationships. And I guess there's like kind of a complexity to it as well. Like right now I'm starting a business and I love what I do. And even though the work I do is like in my feminine, because I practice Reiki and yoga and I write, like the structure around it, I feel like I've had to really like put on my masculine pants and like, let's go, you know? And then there's also like the complexity of like, I wasn't always this way, but I practice abstinence. And so I think that makes me even more, I don't know if careful is the right word, but just like hesitant before going into a relationship, because I know not everyone does that.
Right.
And so
sexual abstinence for now. Okay.
Well, I guess like with another person, like I'll like how do you say this, like self-pleasure is,
right.
You know, not in that realm for me. I practice that, but I don't have sex, or I try not to with a partner.
Right. Okay.
Unless
Well,
we're married or really committed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me try to get to the heart of your question. And again, it's a great question. So I how do I trust? I think the heart of your question is, can I trust that my resistance is intuition or programming? Or some kind of sabotage or programming? Okay, great. And this is not an uncommon, I see like you're getting cheers from women on this call right around this. So, so the way to know that it's intuition is that it happens. So let's say you're dating somebody and it feels good, right? So last time you were dating somebody and it felt good, when did it stop feeling good? Like what was the moment it stopped feeling good?
Like we went hiking. I went on a hike with someone that I'd known growing up, and then like we met up at the park and he said, let's go on a hike. And it was really great. I really enjoyed his company. And then I just felt like the following week, I didn't feel like I wanted to do it again, even though in the moment and at the hike, I loved it. We had a great conversation. It was really fun.
Right. So did you trust him? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to try to laugh. So did you trust him on that hike to take you someplace that you can't take yourself?
In some ways, yes. And in some ways, no.
Okay. So almost always, not always, but almost always, the feminine and the more feminine identified a being is, the more this is true. What she's looking for in a masculine partner is the capacity for him to take her, I'm just using heteronormative terms here, so forgive me, him to take her someplace she can't take herself. And so part of you as a woman, you know, I'm guessing you're relatively aware and you practice, part of you is constantly looking for that guy, right? And that in the guy that you're dating. It's very rare. It's very rare. Most women are way ahead of men in terms of their capacity to lead and be aware. Sorry, guys, but it is. It's just, it's rare and not impossible. And I know tons of men, like women will say, well, conscious men. I know tons of them, and they're practicing and they're deep and they fucking care. And I mean, I am a huge advocate of men. But in terms of just a general I'm in a little bubble of conscious dudes who want to improve, right? But in the general population, it's very rare. So just know that it's going to be you finding a man who can take you someplace that you can't take yourself is par for the course. Now, let's say this guy took you on a hike and he rocked your world. Like he knew what rock to sit on. He knew exactly where to go. You felt held the entire time. Like you were almost like nervous. It was so like he could feel what you need. He knew when you needed water. He knew when you needed a break. He knew when you needed to sprint. You know, he knew when you needed to be carried. He just was like, you were held so fucking beautifully that it almost made you nauseous.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Okay. Now, if you push that guy away, it's sabotage.
Oh.
It's sabotage.
I hear you.
Yeah. Right. And so if you find a guy like that who literally almost makes your, your stomach flutter and butterflies, and you start sabotaging that because he is feeling you so deeply and it terrifies you to actually live that, to actually reveal more, that is sabotage.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So now that's different than kind of disinterest in somebody who's leading you mediocre in a mediocre way, or dating you in a mediocre way. So, you know, the modern woman is a complicated piece of work, and I'm just talking to the men now, like this is what she wants to feel from you deep in her heart, that you can take her someplace she can't take herself, and she can take herself lots of places, financially, emotionally, sexually, you know, like there's a ton that she can do for herself. So your value as a masculine partner, and this isn't a man or a woman, doesn't matter, or however someone identifies, is going to be to take her to that hike, right? Where she just didn't even know that she needed to sit on that rock and look at the birds for 15 minutes, but you could feel it, right? She didn't know she needed to smell that flower, but you did, right? That's the kind of leadership that she is craving. Does it make sense to you, man? You guys just give me a nod, or am I losing? I don't know if I'm losing most of the dudes here, but that's the kind of leadership that she's craving. Now, if he gives you that, and so let's just extrapolate a little farther. So he's going to give you that. You're going to find a guy who wants to give you that, who's good, who's solid, who wants to give you that. And you're going to like push him away because you want to test it, right? You want to test it, right? You're going to push him away because you want to test it. Now, if he can't find an artful way to get through your first layer of resistance, then you've proven to yourself, he's not my guy. Like he can't even handle a little resistance.
That's the self-sabotage part.
Well, no, there's a difference between like your natural feminine is going to want to test his capacity to deal with your resistance. And yeah, it's a fine line. It's a fine line.
It's like that's in the borderline of like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah, it's kind of it. But so once or twice, right? But once he actually breaks through it, if that's all you're doing is pushing, let's put it this way. If you're rejecting his gifts.
Yeah, as you're talking, I don't think it's like that. So I think I'm gonna I mean, I think I need to be aware, but I don't think I'm doing that. I think it's like a mediocre leader, or maybe I just have a high bar, but I'm okay with that. Like, if that means that I am like
Right.
with God for a while before I'm with my partner, then I'm okay with that.
Awesome. I think that's a beautiful way to do it. And you wait for somebody who provides you with the kind of like attention, awareness, and leadership that I discussed. I'm assuming that's what you want. Did that feel good to you?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
spot on.
If you don't want that, that's cool too. Lots of women don't.
No, I want it. Thank
Okay.
you.
So so I just want to round this out a tiny bit further for the rest of the people here, which is this kind of natural feminine instinct to, so let's say he does lead you well, right? That, and I'm talking to the men here, she's going to now elevate her testing of you, of your consciousness and your capacity to see like, okay, now can he led me well, now I'm going to be resistant in some way, some shape or form. And can he break through that? Right. And if he does, then there's like a, it's like, think of a castle with multiple gates, with moats and gates and, you know, traps, and like you want to get to the center of the castle. Let's make it sort of a game, like, as you know, dudes love games. So in the middle is this sort of beautiful, sweet, chewy center, and getting through each particular gate is a test. Is a bit of a test of trust, a test of capacity, a test of consciousness, a test of leadership, a test of depth, a test of integrity, right? And those tests, you actually want to give those tests because you are making him a better person by giving him those tests. Now, he'll either collapse around those tests or he'll rise. My hope is he would rise and be like, okay, here it is. Now, at some point, if he feels like, I asked you, are you rejecting his gifts? And you're like, no, that doesn't feel. So it's such a fine line between your natural feminine desire to evoke more and more and more consciousness and depth from him, and your kind of neurotically pushing away the best he has to give. And that's his. Now, again, this will fall into his purview. If he feels that you're like, he loves, let's say he loves you well, like he loves you really well, and he blows open your heart and you guys have sex and it's beautiful sex, and you're in this sort of really open, wide place. And then the next day you collapse fully and push him away and don't talk to him for a week. It's his job to call out that as your love avoidance or neurosis or whatever, right? And he's got to find a way back into your heart, and he's got to call it out. Now, he might get a little stern about that, like, look, you know, that's not cool, right? So it's so nuanced. All these things are very nuanced, and much of this is in the realm of feeling. So if you have good women in your life, I would bring this to them, like, he did this and I didn't feel good. And then the last piece I'll say is that if you like a guy who could be like, you see potential, like, you know, you see real deep potential. If he does something that you don't, that kind of makes your heart go, tell him, show him, like, oh, I was expecting more. Like, don't be afraid to tell him that you want more from him, not from a place of castration, but from a place of openness. Like, could this guy have done something that would have, like, followed up that date or followed up that hike powerfully?
I think I was like forgiving on certain things that that I would have preferred. Like, for example, I feel like we didn't really clearly talk about, he was a family friend, but I feel like we really didn't talk about like how we were social distancing or not. And so I didn't like trust completely. And so I guess.
Okay, let's stop right there. So that is a perfect example of how he did not provide you with the kind of safety
Yeah.
that you need in order to fully express your, I don't want to say surrender because it's just a hike, right? But in a certain way, like to feel comfortable revealing your feminine.
I'm totally comfortable
container.
with the word surrender. Yeah.
So if he says, hey, let's go on a hike, and he doesn't provide you with the structure of how to do the hike that's going to relax your heart, then he's not leading you well. So what many women will do, and I think this might be the area where might be your edge of growth. Is it okay if I just?
Yes, please.
Okay. So part of your edge of growth was probably going to be to express what you would have wanted more of, what you would have needed more of. So at the end of the hike, you could say, or the next day or 2 days, like, I've been thinking about our hike, or I've, it's best to do it closer in the moment. So I know this is going to sound a little extreme, but let's say so you're on the hike, you get to the trail, and he hasn't said anything about social distancing, and you can feel your heart getting tense. Yeah. You could feel your heart getting a little tense, or like not trusting it, or not feeling open, or something like that.
I think my problem is that I feel that and then I let it go. And
That's
I'm
what
like,
I'm saying. That's it. So the moment, that's your edge of practice. So this is the edge of practice. So you feel that moment, right? The moment of, wow, how come he's not telling us how to do this? Which is, most guys don't get this, heartbreaking on some level to the feminine, right? In a certain way, it's hard. Men are like, what's the big deal? Like, don't we know that we're supposed to social distance? Shouldn't she know that we're supposed to be doing that? Do I really have to reiterate that? Right? So it's a little heartbreaking to feel she feels dropped. I'm talking to the men now. She feels dropped in that moment. And so your job, Layla, is to express, I feel dropped. So let's say and this is a classic one I use all the time. So let's say you're on the hike and he starts walking without letting you know into the social distances. Maybe you stop in your tracks and you stomp your foot and you, whatever. I mean, you're expressing non-verbally, no, I don't feel safe. I don't feel, and he's going to turn around and go, what's up? And then you could say like, because you know, sometimes you have to use words as much as they suck sometimes. Would you like to know what I would need? And ladies, I want you to be really clear about this. Would you like to know what I would need to trust you even more? Now, first of all, if he says, no, fuck you, I don't, well, then you know, most good guys are going to be, absolutely. Well, I would need to know that what our social distance plan is. I would need to know how long the hike is. And you can lay out 2 or 3 things that you would need to know. And then what you're doing is two things. You're honoring your heart, meaning you're honoring the true feeling of your heart in the moment. And you're giving him information that he needs to lead you well. Now, if you do that a few times, and this is the area where I think I think you might be sabotaging, right? Which is, I'm not going to reveal the truth of my heart. I'm going to make him like fight like hell to like feel into me and know when I'm closing it, which is okay. If that's what you want, you can wait a while, but you could, and I think most feminine, you're not the only woman who has this issue. Responsiveness in the moment is devotion to consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this again. David said this a few months ago and it really fucking hit me. Responsiveness in the moment, feminine responsiveness in the moment is devotion to consciousness. So your heart going is actually devotion to his consciousness, because he dropped his consciousness and didn't give a clear structure for your hike. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. It's like, it's the opposite of don't be demanding. I mean, it's being demanding, but with your heart open. Like,
yeah. It's being demanding for his consciousness. Fuck yeah. You should be demanding for his consciousness, just like he should be demanding for your heart.
mm-hmm.
If I was talking to a man, I would say, be a fierce stand for her heart. Like, don't let her close habitually. Like, if I was talking to him, I'd say, the moment you started on that hike, could you feel her heart close? Behind the smile, behind the sweetness. And I guarantee there's a part of him who's like, yeah, but I didn't quite know what to do, and I didn't know what to say, and I just kind of trudged on. Most guys can feel it. So I would tell him, like, no, you stop and you're like, hey, something's up. Like, tell me, what do you need? That's him being a fierce demand for your heart, just like you, and that's valuable to you, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Just like you being a fierce demand for his awareness and consciousness and depth and integrity and meticulousness
Mm-hmm.
is a gift to him.
Yeah.
And you can practice that, Layla. You can practice that without any expectation of relationship.
Yes.
So you go out with guys, or you go on dates, or like I've said this to women before, you can practice that just so that you're honoring your own heart, and you're also honoring consciousness. And there's no like, are we going to get married? Are we going to have kids? Is he the one? Is she the one? Blah, 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 right? And so that makes sense.
Yeah, I think because this was the same edge that you offered me at your workshop, and I do work on it, and I think it was that I can only do it so much, and at that point where I have to do it all the time, I'm like, okay, maybe that was it. This isn't right, because I've already brought up yada 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 yada, like whatever, and it's just too hard to bring up all of it. Maybe I'm not being met with the consciousness that I need right now.
But the how you brought it up is a crucial distinction.
Okay.
So how most women will bring it up is in some kind of directional thing, like, shouldn't we da da da, or are we going to da da da? Like that's a thing that is to the masculine nervous system that will occur as, now you might be right. You might be right. Like, he should have brought up the social distancing issue. Now, this could be the restaurant you're going to, or the sex you're going to have, or whatever it is, right? But the moment you start being the awareness in the moment rather than the expression in the moment, you've taken the masculine pole. So again, I would think your edge of practice, and it seems like I'm being consistent. Your edge of practice is to be the expression of the moment, which is versus the awareness of the moment, which is, wait a minute, we should be social distancing. You feel the difference? I can sense you're a little uncomfortable with this, so I want to stop and give you a second. You're muted, man.
Oh, shoot. It kind of counters what you said about we should always take our feminine and masculine heart to every situation in harmony. Mm-hmm. And sometimes words are needed. So I think, like, if I just like stomp my feet around and have a temper tantrum, like, he's not going to know what the hell I'm saying. I have to use some words.
Yes. And so most women are trained so well in directional language that is so well ingrained in them, right? They're so trained. I mean, the gift of feminism is that it worked. Like, y'all got trained in directionality really well, and great. It's fantastic that you did. But in the moment that you become the direction versus now, feel the difference between, I was talking with the first question, that's a work moment or a practice moment. That's different than a relational moment. In a relational moment that you want to be polarized, relaxing your masculine and letting his masculine take over is the deepest devotion to the dynamic of love and polarity. Does that make sense? Whereas in her world, right, we're talking about she's writing an email, right? So this email has to have the perfect example. She's writing a memo on global warming. So it has to have the perfect blend of feeling and direction, right? In Now, if you stomp your foot and he goes, what's going on? Right? And you say, would you like to know what I would need to trust you more? Yes, you're using your language. But most women are so well trained in language first, and they don't realize that. I mean, just a show of hands by how many men love to be told what to do by their feminine partner? I mean, in moments, yes. But is that your masculine or your feminine? Like the part of you that wants connection, the part of you that wants to lead them, do you want to be told how to lead them? Now you want information about what feels good. And most guys are confused about this, rightly so. You want information about what the masculine wants information about what feels good. Yes, of course. But do we want to be told how to do it? Do you want to have, are you drawn towards her or pushed away? And these are things that everybody's different, but I've seen this enough to know that there's a pretty strong trend to when a human being is in their masculine and they want to lead and they love, to be told how to do that is, will feel like shit. To be shown how you feel and then course correct feels a lot better. Now, the part of you that's resisting this, I would ask you to explore. That might be the part of you that has a relationship to the masculine principle that is, you see what I'm saying, right? So there's a part of you that's going like, fuck you, man. I can feel it. Like there's a part of you like, yeah, I'm not sure. Da, da, da.
No, it's not like that.
Oh, okay.
I know what you're saying is valuable. It's just like, okay, I have to explore it because that's hard because no one ever taught us how to do that. So it's like, okay, let's start fresh now.
True that. And it's just trusting that it will bring it'll bring the most out of your partner.
Yeah.
Your responsiveness. And this is a tricky one for a lot of women. And I understand why it's hard to trust. This is why in workshops, right? You got the experience in workshops, right? In a workshop, you're like, okay, I'm going to express and I'm going to trust that he's going to get more present, more connected, right? I'm going to express and I'm going to trust that he's going to want to hold me and meet me. And you're right. Men were not trained in this and women were not trained in this. And so it is a trick. It is a trick. Okay. So I covered a lot of ground and I was trying to do it for everybody, but did it give you enough to play with? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll give you just one last piece to wrap this in a bow for everybody, which is, make your dating life, since you're in no hurry, right? Make your dating life a practice of both honoring the truth of your heart moment to moment, right? And also seeing what it's like as an experiment of gifting him your response and expression and seeing if it makes him come alive. So you get to see like, okay, if I did pout and stomp and keep my heart open, right? Does he smile? Most guys do. Most guys would. So you've just gifted him with energy and information, which is fucking huge. Most guys just want to know how to make you happy. Yeah. Right? Most guys we just want to know how to love you well. So you give us energy and information. Fuck, that's golden. So practicing, just experimenting with that are the two things that I would suggest you for all the women, right? If you're dating and you're single and you're trying to date in the time of quarantine.
I'm not trying. It just like sometimes happens.
No. Right. Yeah. So maybe whenever it happens, I'm trying to give a larger context here for people to date. Yeah.
I just had an insight that maybe there is a little bit of like, I don't want to say self-sabotage, but like creating an illusion that's not the truth, because when I do practice that, I admit that like it's tiring and it's vulnerable and it's hard, and maybe like yeah, that's my edge. That's what I have to work on.
And that's great. That's awesome. Just like it's hard for him to breathe and look into your heart and feel, and it's like, most guys don't want to be, I don't want to be sitting like this. I'd rather be like, okay, guys. Right? Okay, next question. Right? But how would that feel to y'all? So it's hard for him too. And you're right. And I love that you recognize that, and it's your edge, and it's like any muscle, you just work with it gently and compassionately. And also for him, it's hard for him to be like, okay, so he's hiking with you. Okay, I'm feeling her. I'm feeling the trail. Are there snakes? Is there a mountain lion? Is she okay? Is she well hydrated? That takes fucking work. Dude's breaking a sweat before he's even like taking a first step, because that takes effort for them to put that awareness out.
Yeah. I hear
All right.
it. Thank
you, Layla. Thank you for the question. And I tried to broaden it so y'all could apply hopefully to other people as well.
Yeah.
All right. I have time for one more.
So let's see, Jack, are you available? You can unmute yourself if you are.
Hey, John.
Hey, Jack. Good to see you, man. Long time. Let me just say it to Layla. I appreciate that she hung in there with the question of like, well, what about in this instance? And because so many women are dealing with these nuances of like, when am I? All the nuances that she brought in her questions are I see it in almost every workshop. So thank you for sticking with it.
For the time.